would hope that by 2026, there will be a way for all of us to connect with each other across cultures, across traditions, across languages, across religions, using food as the catalyst.
Hi, I'm Danielle DeLeo Kim, Executive Director of Philadelphia 250. In 2026, the country will commemorate the 250th anniversary of American independence. So I invite you to listen in and get inspired to take action as Philadelphia 250 brings together thought leaders and change makers to share what those founding promises mean to them now and in the pursuit to 2026.
Hey everyone, I'm Alicia Vitarelli, an anchor here at 6ABC News and a co-host of FYI Philly. And today we are talking about the pursuit of happiness. It is the latest in Philadelphia 250's In Pursuit of series, and it's a topic that I think is so important for us right now in 2020. I have two awesome female powerhouses joining me to talk about this. Ange Branca and Kiki Aranita. We're going to talk about how food builds community, how it provides happiness, and how getting together to break bread can really break down barriers and, of course, bring us all the happiness that we're looking for this year. So let's introduce our ladies. So happy to have both of you here for this. It's kind of like girl talk we're having, and we're talking about something that I think couldn't be more critical in 2020, the pursuit of happiness. And both of you know how food can do that for all of us. It brings us joy. It brings us together, even when we're apart in these situations. And I just wanted people to have a chance to get to know both of you as we head into this conversation. So Angie, let's start with you and a little bit about your culinary journey.
So I am the chef and owner of Satay Kampa, or what was the owner and chef of Satay Kampa. Unfortunately, we had to close our restaurant in the middle of the pandemic. But we opened Satay Kampa in 2016, and it was my very first restaurant. I came from a corporate background. I was a consulting partner, and I just after many years of doing that work, I realized that I needed something more that I'm really excited about. I needed to be able to connect with people in a different way, different cultures in a different way, and to share my story and my experience so that I can also, learn other people's story and experience. So I opened a restaurant to embark in that journey, and it has been an amazing journey ever since.
So Angie, I'm really sorry to hear that the restaurant closed. 2020 has been, a really difficult time, especially in the restaurant industry, and small businesses have really been suffering through this. But what I loved about what you said about your journey, you use home recipes, right? It's your Malaysian cooking from your culture, your background.
When I came to US in 2000, that was my very first time here in America. And as an immigrant, there is a lot that we need to learn of the culture here and the new place that we live in. Um, and and there's a lot to learn about assimilation. How do we fit in? How do we fit in the corporate life? How do we fit into our daily lives in this brand new world, making new friends and connections? But as we do that, as we assimilate, as we try to be more Americanized, as we try to be, more like the people around us, over a long period of time, we tend to lose our identity, or we tend to lose the connection, and and it's gotten to the point where I felt like it's time for me to also share that and preserve that, because that's where I come from, and that just makes me so happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to celebrate the things that make us different and how we can take all of those different cultures and bring them together. And I think food has such a special way of doing that. And in a minute, we'll come back to you and talk about how you've pivoted and what you've been doing with the last couple of months. But I want to introduce everyone to Kiki Aranita from Poi Dog. And Kiki, 2020 also had something different in its plans for what you have brought to Philadelphia, which we are obviously huge fans of as well.
Yes, it's been an adventure, 2020. So Angie and I became friends through sharing each other's food, and I'll be eternally grateful. So I wanted to start off with that. Even though it's been a very difficult year for both of us, the fact that I found a friend like her in Philadelphia, and particularly in Philadelphia's food scene, is really looking on the bright, wonderful side of things. Poi Dog also closed this summer, I think about a month and a half after Satay Kampar did. Poi Dog was both a restaurant in Rittenhouse, a fast casual restaurant, as well as a catering company and food truck. So we were a business in 3 different parts. So we were very much engaged in different realms of the food scene here in Philly. Poi Dog means mixed breed or mutt in Hawaiian Pidgin, and I grew up in Hawaii and Hong Kong, so it both spoke to my own identity as well as the identity that my partner Chris and I were taking on by serving food that wasn't straight up traditional Hawaiian food, but was also greatly influenced by our experiences and the fact that we were cooking Hawaii influenced food in Philadelphia.
I think people are looking for the silver linings of 2020, right? Because I'm a bright sider. I'm a glass half full. I'm always looking for, for the good. And this year maybe has been more challenging than any other year that we've been through on a multitude of levels. But what I think it's done is brought people back down to the basics of their home, of their family, of themselves, and said, okay, well, if we're going to really pursue happiness, like let's get down to the core, right? And let's find the basic happiness. And to me, Italian American growing up in New York City, in a house that, my grandmother lived upstairs. And every Sunday she would open her table for, that was her thing. And every Sunday we would come together as a family over a meal. And that was how I was raised, about how the power of food can strengthen a family and can strengthen a community.
Sharing food just can bring so much joy, and when Kiki mentioned it was through food that our friendship started, and it was through food that our friendship continued to develop. It's I still remember the first day I met Kiki. She was at the Poi Dog food truck, and it was on Passion Avenue. And yeah, it was really hot.
It was very hot that day.
And I just opened the restaurant probably just a couple of months ago, and then I saw this food truck at a Triangle, and I thought, you know what? I've heard of this food truck before. I want to go and take a look. And then I see Kiki and Chris. It was so hot, and they were like, "Oh my god!" And try to like fan themselves down because they were in this tiniest little food truck. And I just ran in and brought some water out and said, "I think you need to drink 100 plus." And there was like a Malaysian drink that we had that I would drink all the time. And then I think that was our initial introduction. It was through food and drink, and and Kiki gave me a bibinka to try. It was delicious. That was the first bibinka I've had.
What is it?
It is not like tradition, like it is a traditional Filipino cake, but in Hawaii it is the precursor to one of our most famous and important desserts, which is butter mochi. So our bibinkas are essentially a coconut cream and rice flour baked cake that we would put like Hawaiian flavors in. Like I think the one I gave to Angie was lihing moi, which is a salty preserved plum that is very deeply beloved in Hawaii. And I remember Angie coming by with like these ice cold drinks, and like we destroyed those like immediately. Like it was so hot that day. Like all the ice that like on our drinks had melted. So we're like, oh my God, someone brought us ice. I think she might have saved our lives.
I love this. I love this beautiful friendship.
And it's, it's sharing food like that really brings us together. It breaks the ice. It helps us introduce, ourselves to one another. And look, 7 years later, oh my God, my eyes are tearing just thinking of that day. Because it's like, it seems like we've known each other forever, but I think it's just 5 years now, right? Yeah, 5 years later, we are the best of friends. We have this chat group among ourselves. Um, eventually after we've known each other for a while, where we just continue to support each other, and that's just so precious to have that. And and it's been this way for the last 5 years, including the connections that I had with my customers, the diners that I had. I have so many customers who has come to every single one of my pop-ups, and we just continue to connect that way. And it's and just to see um, and just to see that they continue to support our team is just truly amazing. Our entire team has still stuck together, and we've been cooking together at each one of these pop-ups, and I think that just that connection through the food that we share with each other, whether it's a friend in the industry like Kiki, whether there are diners who came in and had our food. We built this community of support that brought happiness in the toughest of times.
When I think about what both of you have done with your cultures, with your food, with the flavors, just the way Kiki was describing, like this is a most beloved dessert. Like you're first of all taking us almost on a travel adventure that most people can't have right now in this year. We can't just get on a plane and go and be there, right? So you can bring that to us. But growing up, my mom always said, if you want to get to know how somebody lives, you always start with their food. And it's what makes them special. It's what makes people unique, and from different parts of the globe. It's just really a representation. So you guys have been able to share that with us here in Philadelphia, take our taste buds, on an adventure, but also give us a cultural lesson, starting with the most basic thing that everybody sits down to do every day, which is eat, right? And be together and celebrate what it is that makes both of you special. Where are you now in 2020, and where do you find happiness at this very moment? Angie, if you want to start.
Right now, we are doing pop-ups all over the city, and it makes me, really happy to be able to see and still connect with the customers who has supported us and followed us throughout this whole pandemic, and that has been amazing. Throughout summer, we also did some pretty fun and special stuff to support the community. CHOP had a small little grant. They were the doctors who led the refugee program at CHOP. And, they came up to me and said, hey, we have seen, in the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen families struggling with giving nutritious food to their kids, because the food boxes that have been given to them have does not contain, while it fills tummies, it doesn't contain enough nutrition for the children. What can I do, or can I help to get culturally appropriate food boxes to help these families with nutrition? Initially we thought that we were only going to be able to do maybe 3 rounds of boxes at most. We stretched that grant the entire summer and made at least more than 500 boxes the entire summer for the refugee communities every single week. And that that makes me really happy. It's not the kind of happiness that money can buy at all. I mean, it's a different level of happiness where you're working with people who are so influential to support the community, to support people, and the results that we have been able to achieve just with these connections is what makes me, truly happy with the things that we did this summer.
I love that. So the finding happiness in generosity and selflessness and in truly helping people, right? And I think there's a lot of that that has come out of 2020, that people have realized the power of kindness, the power of community, the power of sharing. I think we're really coming back to our roots and remembering what's truly important. And so, there's no city like Philadelphia when it comes to neighbors supporting neighbors. And wow, that's incredible, Angie. That's a beautiful story. Kiki, where are you now in your 2020 process, and where have you found happiness perhaps unexpectedly in this year?
I found it very, very soothing in the midst of being quite alone, to hop on the Instagram and Facebook, and start sharing some of the recipes that a lot of our customers were saying, like, hey, I miss this dish. Hey, how do you make this at home? And um, I'd never been like a very intense home cook, not like Angie has. Angie is like the home cooked as well as like the restaurant cook to like rival anybody. But it was pretty hilarious at first because I don't know how to cook for like two people. I know how to cook for like 200, 500, and more than that. So some of the recipes in the very beginning, I'm like, I'm so sorry. This is going to yield 8 quarts, which is like the smallest amount I can cook. So you will be eating this particular soup or this particular salad for the next 3 months. So eventually I started getting my ratios and my quantities right. But my side hustle for the last few years has been a recipe writer and a freelance writer, primarily in food, but also outside of food. So I've been leaning very heavily into that, in addition to running the pop-ups.
I think Kiki is too humble about her home cooking skills because I've tried some of her home cooking before, and I think that she makes the best wontons ever,
Thank
ever.
you.
It is
Thanks.
so good. I was just dreaming about it yesterday, Kiki.
I'm getting hungry here.
They are the best.
Okay,
Wow.
I will make you more wontons. I got the message.
Yay!
This is awesome. I love it. So Philadelphia 250, right? We have this vision here, for what Philadelphia and the country could potentially look like if we, if we envision, if we imagine, right? If we kind of like take a goal and we put it out into, the universe to say, okay, this would be ideally where we are in 2026. What do you see if you could look ahead? I know, and it's unbelievable because things are changing so quickly around us. But if we could take a sentiment and throw it to the future, right, as a goal for 2026, 6 years from now, what would be your hope or your vision for Philadelphia, Angie?
I would hope that by 2026, there will be a way for all of us to connect with each other across cultures, across traditions, across languages, across religions, using food as the catalyst, and finding a dish that has the story that really embraces and encompasses what you are, and sharing that with one another. And I think that it would be so wonderful to live in a city like that where cultures can come together this way. Because I find that here in Philly, especially, it is one of the most diverse cities that I've ever lived in. It's so diverse, but yet it's also very segregated just because we don't have a lot of avenue to come together. And it takes a lot of, you know, uh, it takes a lot of effort to bring different communities together. But food is something so easy that we can individually do, And I just wish that as time goes on, the more that we have restaurateurs and food makers like Kiki and the community around us here, who have a food and a story of the heritage, um, that we can all bring more people on an individual level to continue to do that. That would be so lovely. I also love to eat. I want to try all those food.
I love how you say like everybody's dish has a story, right? And so, as a way to share our stories with each other, I always think of it as like for my own childhood as like a scented memory, right? So, like when I think about my grandmother frying meatballs, like I can still kind of smell it as part of when I think about my childhood and the things uh, that I grew up eating. And yet at the same time, I feel that when I go into somebody else's kitchen or into somebody's restaurant and they bring me something and say, this is really special in our culture, and here's why. Right. So it's almost like you're sharing a treasure, you're sharing a story, but you're also sharing, I think, an appreciation for something beyond yourself. So I think that's such a beautiful vision that you have. Kiki, 2026. What are you seeing in 2026?
So all the memories, Angie and Alicia, that you guys are dredging up and telling me and making me hungry with, like think about 2026 and 6 years after, who knows how long this pandemic is going to last, but looking on the bright side and looking on like a minuscule part of everything that will come of this. Think about all the kids 6 years from now who are going to have memories like frying meatballs with their parents or like making dumplings at home. Like that's one idea that I have to latch on to, that like despite all of this mess around us and all of this segregation and divisiveness, I hope that one of the best things that comes out of this whole experience is that years from now, kids will be like, hey, but remember like when when we were stuck at home and we had to eat every single meal at home, and then like my parents like or I like learned to make all these dishes. Like I hope that those memories will one day cause like those little kids to tear up and be happy in the same way.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I love that. I love that sentiment. This was such a beautiful chat amongst friends. The two of you are friends in real life, and I now feel like I'm one of the girlfriends who got a chance to hang out for this conversation. So thank you both so much.
We should definitely hang out. Let's set a date for that.
I'm coming for the wontons.
I made a lot of wontons.
Yes.
Like I told you, I can't scale my recipes properly, so I have a freezer full of wontons.
We'll help you out. We will help you with those wontons. Kiki, Aranita, Angie, Branca, thank you so much for joining us as we talk about the pursuit of happiness, the latest in Philadelphia 250's In Pursuit of series. And we love you both and wish you all the best of health and happiness in 2020.
I would hope that if there's another 250 after this, right, that the next 250 is not necessarily focused on, do we include those we excluded, but do we have a new compact, right, that rethinks and reimagines inclusion and exclusion? Because my challenge with inclusion is that sometimes it often requires a power dynamic or a gatekeeper to decide who's included.